Good morning, everybody. So today we are going to discuss the last concept in data preprocessing. The concept is numerosity reduction. And in the earlier classes, we have discussed about various concepts about the data reduction. In this data reduction, we discussed about decision tree induction and PC algorithm. So likewise, we have discussed a few things about the data preprocessing and data reduction techniques. As part of the data reduction techniques, we have discussed PCA and decision tree induction, etc. So today we are going to discuss a concept called numerosity reduction. Numerosity reduction is nothing but we'll be reducing the data volume. Again, the same concept of data volume, reducing the data volume, which means removing the not necessary features for the current or for the time being, and including only the features that are needed for the processing. So in this concept, numerosity reduction, we will reduce the data volume by choosing alternative or smaller forms of data representation. So if the data can be represented using smaller amounts or smaller forms of data, then we will use that alternative form rather than using the original or original data, which is very heavy, not like the data representation takes heavy forms of data. So the data will be represented in reduced forms in numerosity reduction. So what is this reduced form? What is this numerosity reduction? Since we are taking smaller forms, what do you mean by um, big forms or heavy forms? Okay, these are the methods that we are going to implement. What are the parametric methods that can be applied for the numerosity reduction? First, we will assume that the data will fit some model, and we will estimate the model parameters, what are the parameters that are required for that particular model. And we will store only those parameters that are needed for the particular model and remove or discard the remaining parameters or the data. So here what are we doing? We are trying to eliminate the outliers. Consider I have the information about the ages of the people who are living in one particular colony, and that includes the ages from 5, 20, 10, 18, 38, 60, 70, and so on. So now for my analysis, I'm going to take this particular age information. In this, what am I going to do? I want to verify how many youngsters are there in the colony. Okay, how many youngsters or teenagers are there in the colony? Then what do I have to do? Why do I have to select the teenagers? Maybe I have some project to assign to them. So what will I do? I will tell the teenagers will be from 14 to around 16, I will say, or some 20 we will say. We cannot say 20, but for the time being, I am telling I want the age categories from 14 to 20 for my project. Then what will I do? I will eliminate this 5 I don't need. Of course, 20 I can take, 10 I don't need, 18 I can take, 38 is not needed, 60, 70, 30, 14 again I can take. Again, 12, 13 are also underage. So, how many factors are included here? Only how many rows that are included here? 14, 18, 20. That's all. Only 3 rows are included. Remaining all becomes the invalid or outliers for me for my particular model. So original data includes all age categories, but I am going to include only those ages which are needed for my project. Okay, so I will say these are the people who are in their 15, some 14 to 20, and they are only 3 in count. So remaining all except these three, 20, 18, and 14, remaining all will become outliers in this particular model. So for the analysis, what I am trying to make for that particular analysis, remaining all will be outliers. Only 14, 20, and 18 will be the actual data or the parameters that needed to be stored. So those three will be stored and the remaining things will be discarded. So that is the concept of numerosity reduction. Okay. So if I am saying parametric methods, in these parametric methods, log linear models is the best example. Log linear models. So what do we do in log linear models? We'll obtain a value at a point in space as a product on appropriate marginal subspaces. So we'll see this. What is this log linear model? Okay. In non-parametric methods, they will come onto they do not assume any models. Particularly, these histograms, clustering, and sampling goes under non-linear models, non-parametric models. So let us know what is this log linear models and the non-parametric methods. So first one, parametric methods. There are 3 types of parametric methods and we call them as log linear models. So in that first we should know what is regression, linear regression, multiple linear regression, and log linear regression. So linear regression means consider, you know, the linear regression equation. I think we have discussed this. This is y is equal to some beta naught. But let us write this differently. Linear regression y is equal to wx plus p. This is the linear regression equation. Here we will say the linear regression model is constructed between two variables, x and y. Okay, so y is a dependent variable here, whereas x is an independent variable. So why do we call y is independent? Y is dependent and x is independent is nothing but the relationship between these two values will be a straight line whose value will be increasing from 0 to 1. It should be an increasing model. So we will say that it is a linear regression. So here, based on the x value, the y value will be dependent. If x keeps on increasing, y will also increase. If x keeps on decreasing, y will also decrease. So this is a positive linear regression where while the x value increases, y also increased. Whereas there is also another linear regression, that is non-linear regression. In this particular value, the y value, this is positive linear regression and this is negative linear regression. And when value increases, the other value also increases. Fine. Okay, so in positive linear regression, when one value increases, the other one also increases. Whereas in negative linear regression, when one value increases, the other value keeps on decreases. This is called negative linear regression. Anyway, this is the linear regression. The one value is dependent on the other value. Y value is dependent on the X carry. For example, if you are going to buy some used cars, how are you going to uh, verify whether that particular car can be used by you or not? How are you going to verify that? You have to follow some metrics in order to use that. Like if we say that how many number of miles the car is driven, then you will understand whether that particular car can be bought. The car rate will be decided if Y is equal to the rate of the car, the cost of the car. Okay, based on this, you are going to decide whether you can buy the car or not. This is the some variable W is nothing but the X. X is nothing but the number of miles the car is driven. So based on the number of miles the car is driven, you are going to decide whether you can buy the car or not. Okay, so this is the best example. So this will decide the price of the car. So this is how the dependency between two variables. Anyway, the relationship between two variables can be represented in a plot. So here in linear regression, the data are modeled to fit a straight line. If any data points that do not fit within this straight line, we call them as outliers. If consider this is the scatter plot, and in this, considering some of the points, you are going to construct a straight line. Okay, so the data are modeled to fit a straight line. If they do not fit in a straight line, we will eliminate those points and we will include only the points that fit in a straight line. Okay. So whereas multiple regression, here the dependency y is equal to wx plus b, that is the regression equation, right? Here in multiple regression, it will allow a responsive variable y to be modeled as a linear function of multi-dimensional feature vector. Here x is a single dimension, right? But here in multi-linear regression, we will have multiple dimensions of the data. Not one single dimension. It will be the multiple regression. Multiple linear regression is an extension of the linear regression, and the y will be allowed to multiple dimensions. That is x, x1, x2, x3. That is nothing but two or more predictor variables will be used here. Okay. The y is used to be y is predicted using the equation wx plus d, right? So two or more predictor variables are applied in order to identify the y. Then we call it as multiple linear regression. Okay. Whereas log linear regression, log linear model, what does it do? Is it approximates the discrete multidimensional probability distributions, which means that when we are given a set of tuples, okay, and those set of tuples are given for n number of dimensions. Here two or more dimensions we are telling, or more than one dimension. But for n number of dimensions, we are giving tuples. A set of tuples are given here. Okay, and we can say these n number of dimensions can be defined as n number of attributes. N attributes. Here in the linear regression, what are we telling? If you want to buy a car, the number of miles the car was driven is taken as the variable here, attribute. Here for multiple regression, more than one attribute will be considered. Other than the miles, some other feature will be added in order to decide the price of the used car. But here in log linear model, n number of such attributes will be added. Okay, so In this particular log linear model, for each dimension we can decide. Uh, for each respective dimension, we can decide the cost of the car, the probability of the distribution of the price for each n dimensions. This is what the log linear model. Okay, here it is given, you can just go through it. Here more than one variable, x1 and x2, that is more than one attribute. Here there is a single attribute, that is x. Okay, next one is histograms. Histograms are nothing but um, the histogram represents the frequency distribution of data. We will say frequency distribution of data. Okay, frequency distribution of data. That is, how many observations take the value within a certain level. Like here you will see, this is the histogram, right? In this histogram, the process will be generally whatever the data we are having, we are given certain data, we will divide that certain data into different buckets. Each bucket will be of a specific size. Okay, and after dividing that into different bucket, we will store the average for each bucket. See here, you see, okay, consider I have given certain values like 1, 2.5, 3, 3.1, 4, 5, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These are the values I have been given. Okay. Now I have to divide the buckets. I am telling bucket ranges. I am telling. So how will I divide these buckets? These are the list of values that have been given. Then what will I say? 1, 2, 3.1 will be one bucket. Then 3.2, 6.2 will be another bucket. Then 6.3 to 9.1 is another bucket. Likewise, I will divide the buckets. This is bucket 1, bucket 2, bucket 3. These are the 3 buckets. Okay, do you understand this? So likewise, what do we do? Whatever the data we get, the data will be divided into different buckets first. Once you divide those, buckets, then what happens? The histogram can be constructed. So generally, how the histogram will be constructed is, we are going to verify whether the data is distributed normally or not, like this. It should have a bell-shaped curve like this for an histogram. What is this? The data is equally and the data is normally distributed when the curve is a bell-shaped curve. So the normal distribution of data can be identified here. So here the data will be like this. At the center, you are going to have the highest data, and this is how the data is distributed. These are the histograms that are constructed. So that is why histogram is represent the frequency of the distribution of the data. What is the frequency of the data distribution? Okay, relative distribution, or how many number of values can be taken within a certain interval. So here in the previous example, the relative frequency was for 1 to 3.1. I said 1 to 3.1. The interval is 4 there, and 3.2 to 6.2. What was the interval? So likewise, the relative frequency or the number of observations that can be constructed or constituted as a bucket, that we will say relative distribution, or how many distributions or how many observations the value will take at one particular level. So here how many distributions does it take? How many distributions does it take? That will be the histograms. So what are the methods that include in histograms are? Anyway, you should remember that a histogram should be a normal distributed, or the data should be normally distributed for the curve, and we will say that it is a bell-shaped curve. Then the data is distributed equally. Okay. Anyway, this histogram is also another visualization technique for the in order to view whether the data is reduced or not. Okay. These are the partitioning rules. First one, equal width, equal bucket range, equal frequency, V optimal, max difference. So we have seen in the previous example, in the previous concept of binning methods. So histograms are they use also binning method, which where the data will be divided into various buckets in order to find the data distribution. Okay, so a histogram for a particular attribute A partitions the data for a particular attribute A. If I'm writing, it is blinking. That is the problem. Just a minute. One second, I'll just share the screen again. It is going. I'll resume back. There is a problem with the PowerPoint, which is closing by itself. Okay, I think you can see now, madam.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is the histogram. In this histogram, consider, for example, if you want to find the histogram for an attribute A, okay? So partitions the data distribution of that particular attribute A should be done into disjoint subsets, or we will call them as buckets. Okay? If each bucket represents only a single attribute or value, attribute or value, or some frequency, the buckets are called singleton buckets. Okay, singleton buckets. So we have done the previous example. When I'm writing on the screen, it is blinking. So I'm not writing, I'm trying explaining it. You just try and understand. So when we have divided in the previous example 3.1 to 1 to 3.1, 3.2 to 6.2, there each bucket is represented only on a single attribute value. In that particular single attribute value, since the bucket is divided, then we call them as singleton buckets. Okay, here every time often these bucket values should be in a continuous values. Continuous values means like I said 3.1, 3.2, those are the continuous values we will say. So based on the continuous values, the buckets should be divided. Okay, so this is the histogram that you are seeing here. So the data is divided using the singleton buckets only here. Nothing but one attribute. Based on one attribute, the values are divided. Okay. So in order to further reduce the data, we have to have continuous values. Continuous values means, you know that 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, we'll say. Okay. So here equal width. Equal width is the partitioning rules that we have to do. How do you divide the buckets? It should include some rules, that is equal width. Each bucket range should be equal with the histogram. Each bucket range should be equal. Okay, whatever the size that we are taking for the bucket, it should be equally distributed. If I am saying 1.1 to 1.5, the next one should be 1.6 to 2. Then next one 2 to 2.5. Then 2.6 to 3. Likewise, equal distribution, equal ranges, equal width should be. Next, equal frequency. Equal frequency, or we can say equi depth or equal depth, anything we can say. Okay. So in this particular equal frequency histogram, the buckets are created so that the frequency of each bucket should be a constant. Okay. Like in the previous thing, what is the range of the values? The range should be equal, I said. Likewise, in equal frequency or equal depth also, the frequencies range should be same throughout. As many number of buckets you are having, those many number of buckets should be having equal range of values. Okay. 1 minute. Neelu, wash it. Stick. Champala. Okay. So equal frequency means here the buckets should be, whatever the buckets that are created, they should be having a constant value for each bucket. If the size is 4, the 4 should be equally distributed. Like if I said 1 to 1.5, what is the difference between 1 to 1.5? If I say next 1.6 to 2.2, then 2 to 2.5. What is the difference between that? What is the range of that? That constant should be maintained throughout. So the constant is 0.5. That should be there throughout for the equal frequency. Okay. So both are similar. Next, V optimal. So V optimal is nothing but if we consider all the possible histograms for a number of buckets, the V optimal is the one with least variance. That is, if we consider all possible histograms for a given number of buckets. So I am taking in the previous example, how many buckets I have taken for those number of buckets. The VA optimal histogram is one with least variance. What is variance? Histogram variance is the weighted sum of the original values that each bucket represents, where bucket weight is equal to the number of values in the bucket. Okay, the bucket weight is nothing but equal to the number of values in the bucket. That it is like some pakisak, you can say. Width we have decided to be some 1 to 1.5, and the frequency, equal frequency value, that is the equal depth value to be 0.5, and V optimal with least histogram variance. The V optimal, that is weighted sum of the original values that each bucket represents. The weighted sum of all the original values that each bucket represents is nothing but the variance of the bucket. That is, the variance here is 0.5. Okay. Next, maximum difference. The maximum difference is nothing but if the set of bucket boundary between each pair of pairs have the beta minus 1 largest differences. Where what is this beta? Beta is nothing but the user specified number of buckets. So in a maximum difference histogram, if we consider the difference between each pair of the adjacent values. So each pair of the adjacent values, if I take these two, and these two are the adjacent values. Okay. So the bucket boundary is established between these two pairs. This each pair, these two, these two, these two, and these two. It should have beta minus 1 largest difference. Beta minus 1 largest difference. That is 10,000 minus 30,000. What should be? 20,000. 50,000 minus 30,000. Okay, so beta is the user specified number of buckets and the largest difference should be beta minus 1. So basically the histograms are used to construct or to they are used for the data reduction measurements, and here singleton buckets are used, and here we are going to identify or verify whether we are going to obtain a normal distributed data or not by checking whether the curve is having a bell-shaped curve. So look at this curve. Here the data distribution is here from here. It's not normal. Here you can see the data is expanding throughout. So this we will say skewed data. Okay. I asked you about the skewness. Did you study that? What is skewness? Okay. Next, we'll move on to the clustering. Clustering, these clustering techniques, they will consider the data tuples as objects. Until now, we have seen this histograms also considered attributes. But here, they will consider the tuples. How does the clustering will be done? The clustering will be done by partitioning the data into clusters based on the similarity. Okay, based on the similarity of the data, the clusters will be divided. If there are n number of data in the, we are going to divide the cluster. The data is divided into various clusters based on one particular measurement will be used there. That that we call them as the center of the data. Okay, centroid. So based on that centroid, we are going to identify the similarity between the data. Okay. So in the previous age example that I have taken, in that I will say from 5 to 10 belongs to one category, 10 to 15 another category, 15 to 21 category, 20 to 25. Likewise, if I divide the data based on the ages of the people, then the clustering will be done and the data will be partitioned according to the similarity that exists between the data. If I say 5 to 10, 5, 6, 7, 7.5, 8, 8.5, 9, 9.5, 9.9, 10. All those categories are similar to each other because they belong to one particular age category. And then I say based on that similarity, they will belong to one category or one cluster. And 11 to 15, 11.1, 11.9, 12, 12.6 until 15, they will belong to another cluster. So the partition of data set into clusters based on the similarity is known as the clustering, and it is done based on the centroid or the diameter based on that particular centroid. So it is a very effective only when the data is clustered, only if the data is clustered. So the clustering is based on the similarity. So you have to decide what is the measure that you are taking for your similarity consideration. If you decide on which similarity you are going to, on which rule you are going to construct your cluster, that will decide whether you have a cluster or not. Okay, if you have effective data clustering mechanism or effective way of identifying your part of data, then it is okay. That is, it can be very effective if the data is clustered, if it is divided into similar groups. Otherwise, it is not effective if it is smeared. Smeared means if it is damaged. Okay, or if you carelessly divide the cluster, then it is not useful. That is why the centroid plays an important role on which basis you are going to decide your cluster or divide your cluster. Okay, it can have hierarchical clustering and be stored in multi-dimensional index tree structure. And there are many choices of clustering definitions and clustering algorithms, which we will be discussing in the chapter 7. So that is 5th unit we are going to have about clustering, 4th unit. So we'll discuss there in detail what is this clustering. Okay, there are different types of clustering. What are they? How do you partition the data? And all. Okay, anyway, here what you should know is the data is divided into different parts, and each part will be having the centroid. Based on that centroid, the part is divided into a specific part, and each part we are calling them as cluster. Okay, next one is sampling. The sampling can be used as a data reduction techniques because it allows a large number of data set to be represented by a much smaller random samples or much smaller subsets of the data. Okay, so obtaining a small sample S to represent the whole data set N. I'll try to write. Without writing, I am unable to explain. I'm explaining, I don't know how far you are taking this. So this is the entire data set I'm having, and I will cut. So sampling is nothing but these are all the samples from this entire set. If I'm trying to take one particular data, then I will call each one of them as a sample. This is the entire data set. Okay. So in this entire data set, obtaining a small sample, this is S. Since there are many samples, I will call them as S1, S2, and S3. And so on. You can take as many samples you want. Obtaining a small sample S to represent the whole data set here. So this sample is based on your requirement. Your requirement decides what would be the sample. Okay. So we will choose a representative subset of the data. Let me remove this. So we will choose a representative subset of the data. That is, simple random sampling may have very poor performance in the presence of skew. What do you mean by skew? So anyway, here we are given an example here. Sampling can be used for data reduction. What is done here? SRSWR, the first example you see. And second one is cluster sample, it is said. And the sampling is applied to various tuples. You see in the first one here, there are various tuples T1 to T8 and the sampling is done. SRSWR. What is this SRSWR? Simple random sample without replacement. I repeat, simple random sample without replacement. Okay, so this is the sampling example. Consider, suppose that there is a large database, large data set D, which contains n number of tuples. Okay, what are the most common ways that we can sample the D for the data reduction? So I cannot include always my entire data set. I'll only include the data that is required for my model or for my processing, for my analysis. So in this, I'm calling taking the important part or required part as data sampling. So here, this is the entire data set. This is the entire data set. In this entire data set, the sampling is done. This is one sample, this is another sample. And I am calling SRSWR first one. And here, sample value is equal to 4. 4 tuples are taken. And then SRSWR, here a sample value S is equal to 4. That means 4 tuples are taken here. So what are the ways? The first way is simple random sample without replacement of size S, that is 4. So this is created by drawing S of the n number of tuples. Here the n is equal to 8, here S is equal to 4. So n number of tuples from this particular D. This is D, which is containing n number of tuples. Okay, here S should be always less than D. S is 4, D is 8 here. Okay, where the probability of drawing any tuple in D is 1 by n. The probability of drawing any tuple from this D, this is D, is 1 by n. That is, all tuples are equally and likely to be sampled. Whereas simple random sample with replacement of size S, the second one. Students, I'm not writing because it is creating some problem. That's why I'm not writing. Just you write it on your own. SRSWR, simple random sample with replacements. So this is similar to this SRSWR, except that each time a tuple is drawn from D, this particular D, it is recorded and then replaced. Here that recording is not done. It is just replaced. But in this, in with replacement, this is without replacement. In with replacement, the data is drawn, and before it is drawn, it is recorded and then replaced here. That is, after a tuple is drawn, it is placed back to D so that it may be drawn again. But here, it is once drawn, it is not replaced there. But here, once it is drawn, it is a copy of it is maintained. Whereas here, look at this cluster sample. Okay, these n number of tuples, we are taking n is equal to n number of tuples are there. Here, of course, the value is 8. In this n number of tuples, if you are going to, if these n number of tuples are grouped into m disjoint clusters, then the simple random sample of S clusters. Here, simple random sample of S clusters. This is the number of clusters that are available. 1, 2, 3, 4. M is equal to 4. 4 clusters are available out of the n number of tuples. In these 4 clusters, the S should always be less than M. That is, this is 4, S is equal to 2, that is S less than M. Okay. So the tuples in any database are usually retrieved in one page at a time, generally in any database. So that each page is considered as a cluster. This is one cluster, this is one cluster, this is one cluster, this is one cluster. So the tuples that are retrieved from the database one at a time, and we are calling them as a page. This is 1 to 100 tuples, it is a page. And we are here we are calling them as clusters. Okay. Reduced data compression can be. So here, these are the 4 clusters. So the reduced data compression can be obtained this SRSW, or it will not be replacing every time. Okay, so a reduced data can be maintained here. The pages, once they are drawn, they are not written back. Okay, so here these are the 4 clusters, and from which you are going to retrieve 2 sets of clusters for your processing, that is 2012 300 and some in around 7012. So here those are dots, which means that, sorry, I said this is the size of 4, but these dots are not visible. See, which means that there are n number of clusters. In those n number of clusters, I have taken only 2 clusters, and the sample S is equal to 2. Whereas stratified sample, okay, again the D is the data D. Here 8 it is n number of tuples. Here the tuple set is different from T38 to T284. So it is divided into disjoint parts. And these disjoint parts, they are not related. See, these disjoint parts, T38, T56, T96. And that is why these disjoint parts are called strata. Calling it as a stratified sample. Okay. So here, simple random sampling. Simple random sampling is done based on this stratified sample. Okay. So here, from the sample D, a stratified sample of this D is generated by obtaining SRH at each startup. So T38, T190, T391, next T117, T138. So the sampling is done only to 2 youth values and 4 middle-aged values and 1 senior citizen value. That means 4 tuples. 7 tuples are considered as sample from the stratified example. That is according to the age. The sampling is done according to the age here. And here sampling based on the cluster. And here sampling based on the replacement and non-replacement policy. So this is also more diagrammatically given. So here simple random sample without replacement and simple random sample with replacement. In without replacement, there is no replacement of data, but in with replacement, the data is replaced there. And this is the raw data or cluster or stratified sample, taking only the data from this cluster, the data that is required for the sampling. Those points only taken. This point is needed, this point is needed, and this point is needed, this point is needed. So this, all the 4 points are eliminated. Only the 4 points that are needed for the processing are taken. Here, the points that are needed for the processing are taken here. And here as well. Out of all the cluster data elements that are available in this cluster, only the data that is needed for the processing are taken. And why we are calling this stratified sampling is nothing but the data are organized in disjoint parts, not in a well organized part. Disjoint parts of data is organized. Okay. So for example, the stratified sample may be obtained from customer data where the start term is created for each customer group. Okay. So in this way, here we have taken the age group having the smallest number of customers. Okay. So this is about the first unit. I think with this the first unit is finished. If you have any doubts regarding clustering, sampling, regression techniques, you can ask me. Data reduction or anything from the data pre-processing. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. How many of you are missing? Let me see. Okay. Your attendance is taken. Whoever is throughout the class until now, whoever is there, they will get the attendance. You can leave the class if you don't have any doubt.